There you go.
Morena koutou. What we'll do is we'll begin our hui with a karakia. Kei noi tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru. Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ki ota. Kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana, te tākura. He tio, he huka, he hauhu. Tihei maurio.
Airiora.
Yes, so welcome everyone. Sorry about the delay. And I think, you know, we might have to look at changing the shareholder agreement for those councils that don't turn up on time or sort of don't give their apologies without sufficient notice. So, but anyway, that's a matter for another day. So welcome everyone. It's great to see smiling faces, and we've got quite a few people from Northern Inc here, so we're excited to hear from Northern Inc. So what we'll do is I'll just go through our agenda. What we're going to do is we'll take conflicts of interest as we go through each item. Okay, so anyone feels they've got a conflict, just bring that up at the appropriate time, the agenda item. And then what we'll do is we'll start out with apologies. Do I have any apologies? No apologies. So what we'll do is we can move on to our next item, which is our confirmation of minutes, item 4.1. What we'll do is, just given our late start, we'll take the minutes as read. Can I have a mover, please, and a seconder?
I'll move.
Peter moves, Anna seconds. So are there any questions or discussions in terms of the minutes from the previous meeting? I don't see any hands up. What we'll do, so now we'll do is all those in favour that the minutes are a true and accurate record of the meeting held in December, on the 10th of December 2021. Show of hands.
Yeah.
It's carried. Our next item, item 5, is receipt of the action sheet. So Daryl or Emanuela.
I will. Yep. I'll quickly
Okay,
share my screen.
I hand it over to you, Emanuela.
Yes, thank you. So I'll just quickly share my screen so you guys can look at it all together. We have put down a number of items. So first, there was an interest expressed from the committee to actually have the original REITs discussion, which we were supposed to have last year around the time that the tsunami happened, so that meeting got postponed. So we have arranged that to happen today. So we're in progress with that. Similarly, with the investment and growth reserve and the options for available funding, we will be carrying that discussion today. Yes, we also have, there was an interest again from the committee to see some sort of document that they can circulate with their councils in terms of the economic development strategy and the updates and the progress around this. So we know that there is a document currently being prepared by Northland Inc. in the form of a newsletter all around the economic development strategy, which I think we will be seeing soon from Northland Inc. This is the first issue, so it might take a little bit longer to be produced than the ones that will follow. And finally, the last item on the action sheet, the letter of expectations to Northland Inc. on their draft SOI, which we successfully sent out back in December 2021. So this action has been completed.
Thank you very much. So apologies to the committee. I forgot to get a mover and a seconder for this item. So I'll move the receipt of the action sheet. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I can second that.
Yep, John seconds. Now what I'll do is I'll open it up for discussion, but given that we've got presentation on the items, I guess I can lead off. We had a workshop with our council a couple of days ago, and there was great interest amongst councillors in terms of an update on the regional economic development strategy. So that's just a heads up to Northern Inc. and our staff that if we could schedule something in within the next couple of months for a workshop on the strategy. Anna?
Just to support that, we're getting a lot of interest from our council too about where it's at, what are you doing, how's it going? So yeah, an update that we can provide to people will be very helpful.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Nicole, have you got any comments on that?
No, Kapai, Justin, that sounds really sensible, and we have further chat later about the ED strategy, so thank you.
Yes, excellent, thank you. So if there are no further questions or comments, what we'll do is we will take a vote on that and receiving the action sheet. All those in favour? Raise hands. Aye, carried. We're now moving on to item 6, and I believe these next few items are reports from Northern Link, so I will hand it over. But I guess we need should we just take a move in a second for all those reports, please, or do you want to do them individually? We can take them individually. I'll move that 6.1, the Northern Link Limited reporting against statement of intent be received. Another seconder.
I'll second that.
Peter seconds. Okay, I'll hand it over now. I think will be Vaughan speaking to this.
Morning, Koto, everybody. The report's actually written by NRC. Whether Daryl, I'm happy to answer comments and questions, but maybe Daryl or Manuela want to do a quick intro.
Yep, I'm happy to do that.
Not going to take their credit.
Okay, thank you, Vaughan.
No worries. I was about to ask you for your comments anyways, but thank you, Vaughan. As you know, Northland Link delivered to us, they produced and provided to us their second quarter report for the 2021-2022 financial year, and that includes the key performance indicator section. We have assessed that report and pretty much concluded the following. In terms of the 16 key performance indicators, these are progressing well, apart from only a couple, and I'm just going to take the document out. Only a couple, and these follow under the regional investment work area. So the number of inward delegations hosted is quite unlikely to be achieved, and that's primarily due to COVID. And the number of high impact projects that are implemented, there are also there's also been delays because of COVID, but there has also been quite an interest across Northland for the Canoa Fund. And if we go further down the document, which I'm not sharing, sorry, I should have done that. So anyways, Northland Link are also tracking really well in terms of profile and advocacy of the general economic development. I don't know if you remember from last time, but there was an interest from the Joint Committee to see these numbers broken down on a district level. And so we see this time around that Northland Inc. have provided pie graphs within the document that illustrate that distribution across the different districts. And in terms of the financial report that follows, there was an indication of a positive variance of $120,000, which is based on the fact that some of the big payments projects haven't gone ahead yet. And so this will be reflected later on. So we end up with an actual net income of $1,200, pretty much $600 over what was budgeted. And sorry, I rushed through this, but Vaughan, feel free to correct me or add any comments.
No, thank you, Manuela. You've summarised it, I think, really well. There's obviously a couple of areas where we're finding challenging in terms of KPI delivery, but the rest of it going quite well. Maybe one other comment I'd make is I still think the reporting in terms of regional breakdown and sort of that more micro level stuff, we're on track. We're on a path to deliver that better for you. We have been going through a bit of an IT upgrade and stuff that's we've had to get through that before we can properly drag out reporting and stuff, but I think we can keep going in terms of the granularity we can provide to you. So that's something we're going to keep looking and trying to improve over the next couple of quarters. But happy to answer any questions on it.
Thank you, Vaughan. So perhaps I just whip round and see if there are any questions. I see Peter, you've got your hand up.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of points, Vaughan. First one, just a point of accuracy. On your financial page there, you have got note 1. This is associated with grants income, saying slightly below budget due to timing. Well, the figures actually say it's slightly above budget, both year to date and on your forecast. So you might want to correct that. The other thing is in the expenses, you've got a provision for doubtful debts of over 300,000, which was no budget provision for doubtful debts. Can you expand a wee bit on where your concern about that is? It's quite a significant amount of money.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just having a quick look. Usually doubtful debt is associated with the orchard in terms of people paying their bills to run that, but that figure's too big for that. I think
that's a very big figure for the orchard, that's for sure. Yeah,
I think that figure's probably associated with NAFA and sort of planning into our budget around what our costs are going to be up at NAFA. But I might have to come back to you on that one. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, I think it would be worth, because it is, you know, in terms of the scale of things, it's not an insignificant amount of money.
Sorry, Peter, are you talking about under the profit and loss performance to 31 December?
I'm looking at this is a year-to-date actual to the 31st of December 21, and you've got a provision for doubtful debts of $315,000. There was no budget.
I think I've got a feeling that's $300, isn't it? $315.
Yeah, no, you're
right. We'll come back to you on that.
No, you're probably
Peter.
right, Nicole. You're probably right. That is, I keep on thinking all financials are in thousands
Yeah,
of dollars.
me too. No, we're a little bit smaller than that.
which would therefore mean it's related to the orchard, given that kind of.
If it's only 315, it probably is, and I'm a little bit more relaxed now.
I'd dearly love there to be some more zeros on that whole column, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, though.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, Anna.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got just a couple of questions. Under the regional investment KPIs, I'm just wondering with the inward delegations, whether any thought's been given, and I'm sure it has, but I'm interested in what that thinking is around alternative ways of achieving that, given that sort of face-to-face is a bit tricky and, you know, people are a bit less willing to travel at the moment, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just wondering if you've done any thoughts around alternative delivery of that. Someone from Northern Link, Vaughan, maybe.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Anna. For me, actually, the challenge here is when do you record that an inward investment has kind of been achieved?
Yeah.
So we have spent, the focus has changed to a lot of online meetings, obviously, and we spend quite a lot of time talking to people who are interested in coming to the region. But the challenge here is finding that trigger point when you know those people actually are really seriously looking.
Yeah.
And for us, traditionally, that's always been when you can see the whites of their eyes and you can show them stuff.
Yeah, they've turned up. Yeah.
So it's a harder judge when you're online. Yeah, it's harder to work out how serious people are, but we are trying to work out how we do that, how we show people around virtually.
Right.
But a lot of people are saying for a lot of people, they won't make an investment till they can see it, and they're not wanting to come until MIQ's disestablished and until they feel safe travelling. So it's been a difficult space for a while.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Now on the next page, where we've got the three little pie charts, which it's really good to see.
Sorry, quick question. Would you like me to share my screen? I should have done so we're all looking at the same thing. Not necessarily. Okay.
I don't think it's necessary because everyone's got these documents anyway. So I'm on page 13 of the agenda where you've got the three little pie charts, and there's the distribution of unique business assisted through RBP. I'm just wondering whether it's possible to delve into that a little bit, because, you know, as usual, Kuiper is feeling a bit hard done by here. Statistically, we should have more, but I'm interested in understanding what those businesses assisted are, what categories they are, so that we can try and understand what is it that the other areas are doing that is not happening in Kaipara that's generating that business assist. Is that possible to do?
Look, sure, Anna, we can go into a more detailed explanation of what's going on in that area. What you'll find with the RBP is the delivery actually matches really closely to the businesses in your region. So those numbers actually match really strongly with the level of business you've got.
Right.
So I don't see it as an under delivery or Kaipara missing out. They match your business makeup across the region, but we're really happy to show you that. We can delve into kind of what sectors are support.
I guess that would be helpful, because the way you look at it at the moment, it looks like there's an under delivery in Kaipara, but I'm conscious that there are different profiles for different areas, and so I'm just interested if we can tease that out a little bit and understand a little bit more about why that is, because if you look at it at a pure population basis,
I wonder too, Anna, if maybe we could get that through to Anna and Peter, soon, rather than waiting for the next joint meeting.
Sorry, that's what I was meaning in terms of sit down with you two, and I'll get the business growth team together, and we can have a bit of a look into that, because there is some, now that we've got our IT system up running properly, we can extract out some good data in there.
That would be great. It just really sort of helps to have confidence in what we're doing, and also to be able to spread that story a little bit.
Thanks, Anna. And if you don't mind, I wonder if it's a Zoom, if I could join in, Vaughan, to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kia ora.
Yeah. And then I've just, and I'm probably being a complete accounting ignoramus here, but on page 15, the line total vehicles, we started with 119,000. As at December, we had 101,000, which is a movement of 119,000. Is that right? Or am I just not understanding that at all?
Sorry, Anna, I can't quite see what page that's at, but it may have...
On page 15 of the agenda, it's the draft balance sheet.
Oh, right. May have something to do. Did we replace vehicles, Vaughan? What happened there? Have we done anything with our vehicle fleet? We got an EV, didn't we?
No, I don't think that fits in this calendar year. We have leased a number of vehicles.
It just looks a bit odd that we started with 109, but the movement is exactly the same as the closing balance at June.
Yeah, I suspect that's wrong.
I think you've got $100,000 too much in there.
I think the movement
we'll come back. Yeah, we'll come back. We'll get Tammy to have a look at that.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, and that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I'll just go to John, Councillor Vucic. Have you got any questions or comments, John?
No, I'm good there, Justin.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I've only got one, but I'll save mine up because it ties into the regional reach discussion later on. So if there are no further questions, what we'll do is we'll just vote on receiving that agenda item. All those in favour? Aye, carried. So now we'll move on to item 6.2, which is the Northern Limited Statement of Intent, and it's the draft received. So I will move that report is received. May I have a seconder, please? And a seconds. Okay, it is now open for discussion, and I guess I'm just wondering who will be speaking to this report.
I'm just going to confirm. Daryl, are you happy with me going ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
Okay. All right. So as you know, Northland Inc. have delivered their draft SOI 2022-2025 according to the legislative requirements of the Local Government Act. So the purpose really of this discussion this morning is to gather your thoughts and your feedback, so we can provide somehow a collective comment later on today during that quarterly workshop with Northland Inc. So to give you an idea in terms of timeline, after today's discussion, we are meeting again in April to pretty much finalize the shareholder comment. So we are, according again to legislative requirements, required to provide a shareholder comment to Northland Inc. before the 30th of May. So Northland Inc. will have until the 1st of May. So Northland Inc. have until the 30th of June to provide back to us their final SOI. And after that, the joint committee has a month's time to agree to the final SOI. And that's why you will see through the annual work plan, we have suggested a meeting for the end of July. So the other thing that I wanted to point out with this process is that we have also provided a letter of expectations to Northland Inc. in regards to their SOI back in December last year, which has also been attached to this paper. The few comments, basically the main point of that letter was that we're not looking at making significant changes just because we have been through quite a hectic process last year with modifying the SOI in general. So the committee was willing to allow time for Northland Inc. to, produce results. So this time around, it's just going to give you a rough idea of how, I guess, Northland Inc. responded to the letter of expectations. We have definitely seen improvements with grammatical errors and language inconsistencies. I think there was a small comment from Daryl that there could have been a bit more work in some areas, just minimal really. There is definitely reference made to COVID-19 and the lessons learned, and that was as recommended by us. In terms of the donut diagram, we had requested to see some sort of modification, so it kind of like reflects our region. This hasn't necessarily happened. Northland Inc. have attempted to align the diagram more with the rest of the document. However, they also express, if I'm not mistaken, an interest to do this modification later on with the economic development strategy process. So we're anticipating to see it happening a bit more later on. There was also an interest from us to see some numbers associated with the high level outcomes, the regional outcomes that we see on the right-hand column of the KPI framework. We haven't seen any numbers as of yet. However, again, this is something that we might see coming. We might be able to define these outcomes a bit more with the economic development strategy and be able to actually put some numbers around these outcomes. There was also an interest to see the addition of supporting other organizations to obtain as much external funding as achievable under Northland Inc.'s work areas. We haven't necessarily seen that yet, but maybe this is something we would like to think whether we are going back to Northland Inc. stronger on this or not. So I guess the biggest point is that the Joint Committee noted that there was limited funding available for Northland Inc., even with the increase of funding received by the shareholders. So the committee actually suggested Northland Inc. review their operational funding requirements to allow more funding towards the enabling investment allocations. The proposal provided by Northland Inc. Left no money for the enabling investment allocations. And again, if I'm not mistaken, Daryl had a chat with Northland Inc. who have said that they are keen to initiate a robust conversation around this, and therefore these results on the draft. So I think no other major changes in the report. The KPI framework has remained pretty much the same in terms of the 16 indicators, just looking to, I guess, have been the updated dates and numbers. I think that's from me, but Daryl, please feel free to add anything to it.
Kia ora, Emanuela. I think you've done an excellent job there in terms of summarising, in terms of relationship between our letter of expectations and how we and commentary about how that came into or not the draft that we've received. And like you've said, in terms of other changes in the SOI from our current SOI, there is very limited other wording changes. There are a few things that have been dropped out from the activities, but that's purely on the basis that those activities were being undertaken in 2020 in the current year and won't be undertaken next year. So therefore, there's every reason why they shouldn't be there. So apart from that, it's exactly as we have it, with those improvements in terms of the grammar and things like that we talked about earlier on. Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Daryl and Emanuela. So I see, Anna, you've got your hand up. Over to you first.
Thank you. Thank you to Northland Link for doing this, and Emanuela for your overview. That's helpful. There's one issue that all us councils are getting terribly excited about, because we're all getting presentations about it at the moment, and that's the renewable energy zone. And this has come up since the letter of expectation, and in fact, since the statement of intent. So I'm just wondering about the committee's thoughts about, and Northland Link's thoughts about whether that should feature as, you know, one of those sort of, maybe I'm looking under point 4.1, there's supporting and facilitating development of a new and enabling infrastructure. And at the moment that says such as UFB roads, rail and water. And I'm just wondering what the committee and what Northland Link's response would be if we were to suggest that renewable energy was in there as a sort of priority enabling infrastructure. And I know it's new, so I know that this is sort of not just critiquing what's in front of us, it's actually throwing something new in the pot. So I'm interested in thoughts on that.
Peter? And then
I
John.
can respond. Yeah, I've actually had a few discussions with Russell Shaw, and it is not as good as it may sound. I did sort of try and push a more general approach in a recent article I wrote in the Northern Age. But really what they are trying to do is there's no way, one is I'm thinking where to start. We've got 1 gigawatt of power capacity through renewable sources if we were to fully develop them. That's what was estimated from Top Energy and also North Power. The problem we have is there's no way that the transmission lines can carry that sort of load, and we can't push it south. It's an aging network. And so this is a joint venture with Transpower, and what they're trying to do is to get the initiatives that are the renewable energy generators, like 20 meg, 25 meg, and 20 meg up at Kaipara solar, to pay for some of that transmission line. And so to answer your question, in terms of infrastructure, certainly it is needed. And yes, I think we should support it. However, it's more of a strategic move so that the government can get those that are providing the generation and renewables to help fund their transmission lines, which we will definitely need when we move towards a lower carbon economy, and essentially with all electric cars. But it is positive, just to be clear, it is positive. But me personally, I'd love to see smaller industries get involved in some of the renewable space as well. For example, around the digester in the park, which could produce methane, which I know methane is a real dirty word, but if you burn it, then it's the green methane coming from effluent ponds or from a digester. It's all, once you burn it, it just goes back again. So I'd love to see encouragement of small mini hydro or solar power plants being done by businesses themselves getting involved in putting solar on the roof. And I've actually sent through to Russell an example that was done by the Wisconsin University, a technology that's now maturing, where they actually are looking at better balancing the grid when you get very peaky loads, multiple sources that turn off and on, like solar and wind. And putting a smart grid sort of technology in place. I'd love for that to be pushed as well, say from Northland Link. Do a submission. I say do a submission. I think our council is doing a submission, and it may be a joint regional council who joined up the submission. myself personally, I'm really keen to do a submission as well. I may do that because I think it is a great initiative if it were to look at the wider picture. The wider picture means you've got the biomass that is rotting on the forest floor that can be turned into, torrefied and turned into a replacement for coal, which can be used by New Zealand in the dairy factories or wood chips. So there are other energy sources that should be considered as well, which they are not really considering at this time. Sorry, Justin, maybe a bit long-winded comments, but
no, I get the gist of what you're saying. So you're supporting it really, John, aren't you? So I guess, Anna, what you're saying is, you're indicating that you see merit to Northland working in that space, potentially.
Yeah. I'm interested in Northland Inc's thoughts on this, because presumably they're also aware of the renewable energy zones and the presentation that's whipping around the blocks at the moment, and may have some thoughts on this. So yeah, I'm just wanting to put that on the table because it's a big thing for Northland. Yeah.
I'm just looking at time, Anna, because we had a late start. Perhaps, I mean, Northland can make a note to include that in their feedback on the during the SOI process, the development and the finalisation of the SOI. Well, I think you've made a good point there, Anna, given the change in the landscape and the focus on renewables, potential focus on renewables. So, Peter, I'll come to you now.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going back into the attachment relating to the financial information. This is page, page 34 of the report. I'm just interested, as we all know, Northland Inc's been involved in the peanut opportunity in the Kaipara and working towards that. And it's getting a lot of media attention. There's been several articles which have all been pretty positive, so it's quite an exciting opportunity. You've got in the 22-23, you've got both expenditure and some revenue coming from that project. But then going out 22, 23, 24 and 24, 25, you've actually got a very much lower expenditure on that project, which suggests that perhaps you're not putting as much in or having as much involvement, and also no revenue coming through. I'd just be curious to know just exactly what your role is if you're getting expenditure for that project, but you're not getting any revenue forecast. Just doesn't seem to, could we have a bit of explanation on that, please?
Vaughan, can you see where those financials are? It's page 16 of the...
Yeah, sorry, I was just taking a minute to follow Peter's thinking before.
Oh, right.
I'm using. So a 2-year project, just under $1 million is the overall project, just to give you some scale to it. It looks like it's in there. It looks like it's covered both in terms of element of activity through SFFF peanuts, and then further down through Northland Kai peanuts. So we've kind of got, I guess there's the operational out there stuff, and as well as the staffing resource that are covering it.
I'm just really looking at the years 23, 24 and 24, 25.
Yeah.
We still have got expenditure being forecast to be used on that project, even though at lower levels than 22, 23, but there's nothing coming through to match that in terms of any revenue stream from that project.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think the main thing is it's a 2-year project, and we're in year 1 at the moment. So next year is year 2. And what you're probably seeing there is trying to maintain a little bit going forward, but that little bit is not funded significantly. So the bulk of funding is this year and next year. So in our current SOI, and then in the first year of this SOI.
Yeah, so that's right, Vaughan, and Peter. Yeah. So Peter, just having a look at this, I agree that's the picture it paints, but keeping in mind that these forecasts are, at a point in time, as in now, and it will depend, on the success of the project and how we support it moving forward in those conversations with MPI and SFFF, et cetera, and the other funders, Vaughan, that you've worked with. So I'd say, the forecast for 23, 24 is even possibly going to change as we move through. All of these forecasts do, but we take your point that that's not really reflective of a long-term project. It may be, Vaughan, that there's work to shift it out as well.
Peanuts is hopefully not a long-term project. So the idea of it is we are proving the commercialisation of it.
Yeah.
And once it's finished, it's commercially ready, and therefore we don't have anything to do in there. We hand it over to farmers and to interested growers.
I agree entirely with that summary, Vaughan. That's exactly as I would see it. But then you've got a very big, quite a significant lift in expenditure on 24-25. You're jumping up fourfold over what it was the year before.
Yeah, I guess that's a desire to keep doing more in the Northland Kai type space. And maybe it is a bit of context. So we're not included in this, but we are doing quite a lot of work around what's next for E350 and that Northland Kai, Grow Northland type thinking. So we have tried to put that little bit away to try and achieve that, but we actually want to do a whole lot more. So as Nicole says, this is the challenge with project-based funding and stuff, but we do hope to really increase our level of activity in there, but we need funding for that, and that's SFF type funding again, which we're exploring right at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
So, Peter, I see the Northlink director, Jeff Copstick's got his hand up. He may have as more additional comments around this.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Morena Tatau. We've been coached over many years at Northlanding to not include speculative income, Peter. We can only include in the SOI known contracted income. However, we are aware that the costs of these sort of projects are multi-year. They're not single or 2-year projects. They are longer term commitments. So unfortunately for you guys, you have to understand that we've included the costs as we know them, but we are unable to say, well, we will apply and hopefully receive grant income to support them. So you are seeing kind of one side of the coin, not both. We would be applying for funding SFF or otherwise to fund that activity, but that's a risk you face if we can't include speculative income.
That's a good explanation, Jeff. Thanks for that. And perhaps just for so those sort of questions aren't asked again, there's a little note put associated with that table so that explains it in the financials when they're set out. Thanks.
That you're happy with those responses, Peter?
Yep, that's fine. Thanks, Justin.
Okay. Just in the essence of time, I don't see there's any additional questions or comments. So what we'll do is we'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour of receiving the report?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. So moving on, just our final item now is the annual work plan for 2022 and 23.
I'll just run you through it. And
hang on, Emmanuel, I'll just get a mover and a seconder for the report, please.
sorry.
Happy to move.
Anna moves.
Happy to second.
John seconds. Thank you. Yeah, well, there you go, Emanuela.
Awesome. Cool. So here is the annual work plan for the 2022-2023 year. So we are suggesting additional dates, but we're also making one change to a date that we have already agreed on. So our next meeting was supposed to happen on the 22nd of April, but and that's not a Northland workshop thing, it's just a joint committee meeting. We are suggesting to move that to the 29th of April instead, so that it doesn't fall between the two holidays, Easter and Anzac Day, if that's all right with everyone. Later on, we know we're moving in June, where we have our quarterly workshop with Northland Inc. We have suggested a meeting to take place in July, so the joint committee can agree to the final SOI. The local elections start in October 2022, which means that the September meeting might be our last chance to meet for the 2022 year. So we have added a date for a September meeting, the 23rd specifically. And I think this will be a good chance for the joint committee to discuss around the economic development strategy as well, and any further updates. And so for later on, December, We have suggested a date, but being pretty aware of the fact that we might not have the full joint committee at that time. So if we don't have at least one representative from each of the shareholders, each of the councils, we will not be able to go ahead with the meeting. So I guess we'll see closer to that date. And then we have a few dates suggested for March, April, and June 2023. As we tend to. That's from me, I think.
Yeah, I'll just make an additional comment there that obviously, you know, with elections coming up, that there could well be a possibility that there will be different council representatives on the joint committee. And so we will need to probably, on top of these formal meeting dates here, provide some opportunity to get those new councillors up to speed a little bit about Northland Inc. and the processes and things like that. So they would be looking to happen outside the formal committee meeting process, but understanding that those kind of things would need to happen.
Yeah, Daryl. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, comment similar to that I was going to make, Daryl, and that is, since you've covered that one, the other one is, given the role of the committee, are there any decisions that actually would be critical during that period? I can't think of any. You know, Far North, Northland Inc. has got its own board and will be running, you know, its own ship, so to speak. So I don't see that the major issue, but I'm just asking that question. If there's anything, what are we planning to do to cover for that?
In terms of the legislative process and basically the SOI, we have captured the July meeting. Later on in September, you as a committee discussing around the letter of expectations, which we send out and finalize in December. So that's as far as I am concerned in terms of big legislative decisions.
Yeah, so it's all covered.
Anna? Thank you, John.
Yeah, just following on from that, the only thing that I'm a little bit nervous about around that election closeout and all of that is in the September meeting, the discussion regarding 3 directors' terms. I just wonder if there's no urgency in that, could that be put through to the December meeting? It just means that we're not sort of, as potential outgoing elected members, we're not making decisions on, you know, who are directors at that point. It would be, I feel it would be better for the next councillors, the next wave who are appointed to this committee to make those decisions.
That's a good point, Anna. So I guess what we don't have to have an immediate answer on that. Perhaps staff from our councils can go away and have do a bit of thinking around that particular matter. But that's a very good point, Anna. So I don't think we need an immediate response for that. Just make a note.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I didn't have any comments on this particular item other than I do apologise. We have talked about governance to governance, like making some space and time available for governance to governance conversations. And I'm just wondering, Daryl, could we work that into this work program, this annual plan, sometime, and or maybe a signal from the committee members themselves and directors if they see merit in just a short half an hour governance to governance at any time during the year. I mean, I haven't done a very good job selling it, but I mean, you know, I know we had talked about it previously, but if there's no real burning desire, that we can lay that on the table.
Yeah, I think, Justin, if we can give some thought to it, we're hearing what you say. I think there is merit given what we're actually facing. We heard about the renewable energy zones, but we also have some major challenges economically. We see fuel rising and significantly, and that's going to have an impact on remote areas like ourselves. Marsden Point closing, I believe they received their last shipment. And what risk is that going to be to us up here?
given that there's potentially a nasty war in Europe. So there may be, put it that way, there may be ample scope for some discussion covering those things that are not running in the normal mill of things that we've got covered. That's my thoughts.
Any additional comment there?
Yeah, I tend to agree with what John's saying, Justin. I think we sort of leave that as a potential, and if the need arises, we can probably at relatively short notice convene something.
Okay, so we'll just leave it. That's some flexibility around that. That's what you're signaling, Peter.
Yes, that's right.
You're saying we can organise it ourselves. I myself have some doubts, but anyway, that's okay.
If I could jump in, could we sort of meet halfway on it and say that at least once a year we'll do this?
What I was thinking, Anna, is that,
and then additionally as required, because
yeah, what I was thinking, Anna, is basically after the SOI signed off, and then also at that point we would have probably had the presentations on where the strategy for economic development in Te Tai Tokerau is heading, and I think that might be an opportune time to pick up some of the conversations that John's just spoke of, and Peter, and also there might be a bit more detailed conversation about once each council's heard about the work plan for the development of the strategy. That might be an important time for a governance to governance conversation.
Yeah.
So could we try and pencil something in around there? Is there a July meeting? There is a July, isn't there?
Yes, there is, Chair. There's the July one, which is not a quarterly workshop, as you see from the sort of, we try and make those hopefully clear in terms of one of those formal quarterly ones that we have in end of June, September, December, March. So in July we don't actually have a formal quarterly. So
that would be a good time then, really, wouldn't it?
Well, it's up to you guys. It's a good time, but also just in terms of half an hour within the standard quarterly workshop could also be arranged so that there's no extra meetings as well. I'm just kind of conscious about requirements of people.
Okay, well,
as a staff, I have no problems, with where you want to fit it in. It's not an issue.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll just leave it for later on, and we'll keep that in the back of our minds. Thank you. So if there are there any further questions or comments on that particular report? Appears not. What I'll do is now put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Okay, that now brings us to the end of officially the end of the meeting. What I'll do is I've got a closing karakia, but we'll save that for the end of the day, okay, people, when we wrap up all the business. And I just have a bit of an apology. Fortunately, I'm supplied with a run sheet from Emanuela, so I can manage these meetings so easily. It makes me look organised, but I'm really not. But I've missed. I was supposed to introduce Briar, who is the FNDC staff representative. It's taken over from Bill. So sincerely, I apologise, Briar. Perhaps you'd just like to introduce yourself, even though it's the end of the meeting, and just introduce yourself to the team, the committee.
Good morning, everybody. So yes, I am Briar Mackin and I'm the team leader of policy at North District Council. So great to be on board.
Thank you. So yeah, once again, apologies. And yeah, I see the thumbs up from Emanuela. I have followed the run sheet, but it will be in the back to front manner. So thank you, everyone. What we might do now is, I think now you're going to close off on live stream, and then shall we have a bit like a 5-minute?
Yeah. Can I just note my apologies for lateness? I really thought Dave Clendon, who said he was coming, in fact, he's in Whangarei right now.
It's okay, John. We transferred some of FND's shares over to KDC because they both turned up. So you're going to have to claw those back, mate.
Justin, just to add to that, Liz Oliver's texted me earlier, which I missed. She's unwell today, so if we could just note her apology, and just with the interests register for this meeting, if you could note my top energy directorship so that that's in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so two secretarial notes there, please. Melanie will be taking notes, so that's great. So I think what we'll do is just take a 5-minute short break here. So that means we'll come back at 11:20 for our workshop.